Welcome to the Dad Show podcast. How y'all doing? Today is part 3.
And the second thing is you talk about pulling away from the digital world. Like one thing that we instill in our family is when we sit down for dinner, no phones. Like not at all. We want to talk as a family. That's our family time. I'm gonna have to pull that of what you do with your kids every month, of vice versa with surely we can fit that in, man. That's a great idea. But Brandon Janis, who I just mentioned about, had the publishing company. He also said that, you know, and this was huge. I never thought about this. Like, I tell my kids, no, you're not getting on the iPad. You're not getting on the TV. You're not getting on this device. But that also means me. I don't need to be on mine either. Like, if I'm going to tell you not to be, then all they're going to do is, well, you told me not, but you're sitting there on yours. So how's that make them feel? So that's really huge that you all disconnect. You try to bring the writing aspect and using your imagination and, you know, all those different variables into play. So that's great, man. That's really awesome.
Yeah. Well, one thing I remember when, so my brother had, he's about 3 years older than me, and his oldest is about 6 years younger than my oldest. Or maybe even more than that. She might only be about 2, but they just had their second. So he's older than me, but his oldest is way younger than my oldest. So I had kids way before he did. And one thing, he would come, and he lives in England, so he would come to visit, and we would have these conversations before he had children. But one thing that I remember kind of like picking up on was there are times where I find myself being very irritable with my children. And I realize it's because they want my attention, but I'm staring at my phone. And it was kind of one of those like earth-shattering moments where I'm like, this is like offensive in 2 different ways. I'm like ignoring them and getting frustrated with them, and I got my face in my phone. And it was one of those, again, it was one of those whole, you know, like shattered glass, you know, in the brain sort of moments. And I just realized, like, man, my attention, first of all, is always under attack from the devil, right? He, you know, I think C.S. Lewis wrote this, but it's like the devil's not trying to get you to sin. He's really just trying to get you distracted, right? So sin is a product of that, right? But keeping your, like, distracting you from focusing on Christ and from seeing God and then moving towards God, it doesn't always have to be this big climactic sin or this big catastrophic, you know, thing that you've done. Sometimes it's just the white noise that keeps you distracted and keeps your eyes off of him, right? Peter fell into
little bits and pieces to try and just, you know, those little bits and pieces. It's not going to be this big black object with red horns it's coming at you. No, it's going to be this little small little picture here, this small little video here, and then eventually you're like, oh, it's okay, you accept it. Like you said, he's the ultimate deceiver. That's right. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, you're good. You're good. I just was basically saying, like, when I had that moment, that kind of epiphany, that like, and this was years ago, but you have that epiphany of like, the reason I'm irritable right now is because I'm trying to do this thing over here on my phone, and they're trying to get my attention. And as their father and as the one that wants to build a long-lasting relationship with them, like, you just have to make this, you know, and it feels sacrificial, but you have to say, you know what, you guys are just so much more important than vegging, than being entertained by my cell phone right now. And so, yeah, having that intentional time, putting that phone away, putting that iPad away, putting the computer away at the end of the day, and really kind of leaning in and focusing on the family is just so crucial.
Well, and, you know, a big battle with, and I'm sure you all battle this too, like a lot of the time on my phone, I'm not doing it for entertainment. I'm not doing it because I want to talk to somebody. I'm doing it because I'm working on a podcast. I'm working for our nonprofit organization. You know, it's that battle, man. You're doing it because you want to build this up to make wealth come in, make money come in for them. Mm-hmm. But yet you're taking time away from what matters, you know, for this, thinking that it's the better for them. But really, it's that constant battle of, you know, how much of this do I do for them? And then how much do I do for, you know, actually paying attention for them? You're taking away from the whole goal of everything. And so that's a big battle. And one of the things I try to do, like if I'm on my phone or I'm on the computer, and one of my kids walk up, I don't, continue looking at my phone and talk to them. I try to like take the phone away and pull my face towards them so that they know that they have my full attention, that, and that's hard sometimes. Sometimes you have to write a text message. Sometimes you have to answer the phone. Sometimes you have to write an email, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But if you can just say, hey, look, give me 30 seconds and I'll give you my full attention, or let me finish this in 5 seconds. I'll give them a time limit. Don't just say, give me a few minutes and I'll be done. Like, give them a time frame, because they're going to give them in a few minutes. Be like, hey, it's been a few minutes. Like, where are you at? Why are you not paying attention to me? And then that comes that whole struggle in the mind. Oh, my daddy wants to pay more attention to his phone than he does me, and I don't matter. And then, then the devil's in their head. And like you said, it's just small little things. And then all of a sudden it's something big, something huge. And, that's really big. I feel like the phone is the devil, or a computer is the devil, but it's also a blessing. You know what I mean? Like, and you just have to figure out where that fine line is and just don't cross it.
Well, and one of the things as I've taught the college age class at the church, one of the things that we've talked about is how God gives mankind these gifts, and mankind finds a way to pervert them and take them to the extreme, right? And how quickly and easily something can be taken out of context and perverted. And obviously sexuality is a huge piece of that, but something as simple as the internet, which connected everybody all over the world, very quickly mankind found a way to use that for destruction, right?
Exactly.
And to bring in mankind as a channel of evil and wickedness and the devil, but found a way to take something that united everybody all over the world and turn it into something that corrupted the hearts of so many people and distracted so many people. And social media in general, like, there's so little light and hope on social media that, like, something like your podcast is so encouraging to see, like, how can I tap into this river, this stream, this ocean, if you will, of just distraction and try to bring people to the foot of the cross. There's a lot of pastors and a lot of Christian churches and a lot of Christian podcasts and a lot of things out there that are doing that. And I think it is a mission field. And so I think it's awesome, some of the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. That means a lot. So I know we got just a couple more minutes. Real quickly, I'd like for you to hit on your college course that you got going on, and then there's one more question I want to ask you after that. So let's hear about that college course real quick.
Yeah. So we teach the college age kids at our church, and we've gone through most of the New Testament epistles and are now working through the book of Joshua. And one of the things I think about, I know it because I lived it. Like, when I got out of high school and was no longer living in my parents' home, it was kind of like, let me try and do this on my own. You know what? I've done the church thing. I've been there, every Sunday, more or less. I've had to get picked up early after sleepovers with my friends, and, had to miss sporting events so that I could go to church. You know what? I'm going to try it on my own for a little while. And, we talked, I think, a little bit about this either at the beginning of the podcast or before the podcast, but it's amazing how quickly I found myself in a position of unhappiness and lacked fulfillment. So when we were asked to teach that class, I was so excited, and my wife and I both kind of jumped at the opportunity, because when I got out of school, and this is kind of a cool little testimony, but when I got out of college, I had gotten right with the Lord and decided that I wanted to go into full-time ministry. And when I got out of college, I actually searched for opportunities to teach a college age class for about 2 years, roughly. Kind of applied to some different stuff and was hoping that the Lord would open up that door of opportunity. And eventually he kind of moved me into this position of, kind of like a business person and a salesperson and kind of desiring growth in business and to build something special there. And then, you kind of fast forward 10 years and all of a sudden we have an opportunity now to lead this college ministry at our church, which is exactly what I wanted when I first got out of school, right?
Wow, that's awesome.
And it's the ministry that, like, in my head was what gave me the desire to do that.
Yeah.
It's the ministry that helped me get right with the Lord, that really pursued me when I was kind of going through, some of those darker times. So it just was cool how that took about 10 years to kind of come back to me, but it's just really fun.
On your time, it was on God's time, right?
That's right. God's timeline. That's right. So anyways, there's no, we use a curriculum that the church kind of passes on to us, but it's cool to be able to dig into the scripture and then to kind of cover some of those things. But reading the first chapter of Joshua the last 2 weeks, we've kind of been able to look at, the book of Joshua is all about the people and the promise and the land, right? And, they enter the promised land, they conquer the promised land, then they divide the promised land. And there's a lot of visual, the imagery of salvation, being pulled out of slavery, going through a period of time of kind of growth and uncertainty and at times questioning God's will and God's position and guidance, and then ultimately crossing into the promised land, potentially looking at it from a certain context of salvation and experiencing, Christian life. We're not always promised not to go through hardship in Christian life.
That's the truth, yes.
Almost promised the opposite, right? Christian life is promised to be difficult. And so it's been interesting, the first chapter, and we'll kind of go further into the book of Joshua. But that's kind of what we're doing with the college age kids.
That's awesome, man. That's great. All right. So my last question, you take your car in for maintenance, right? You go get your oil checked, you get the tires rotated, something's going on. You may even hear some kind of ticking noise, whatever. Let's put that in an aspect of your marriage. How do you take your marriage into maintenance and make sure that everything is running smooth, the oil's changed, tires are perfectly inflated? What's one of those things that you kind of do a monthly maintenance check on your marriage to make sure that it's flowing smoothly?
Yeah. This is a phenomenal question. And I think it's a great question, to your point, exactly, because not everybody's going to answer that question the same way. My wife and I, we are very clear verbal communicators with one another. When we are not aligned, if you think about tire alignment, right? When we're not aligned, we have a rocking chair in our room. And when I sit down in that rocking chair and she sits on the bed and we're talking to each other, that is when we do the most heavyweight boxing with each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, like, the purpose of your spouse is not always to have the kid gloves on. In fact, it's kind of the opposite. And we tell each other all the time, like, there are two big things that we say in our marriage. And the first one is, like, God has blessed me with you to help you grow and to help me grow. And you don't grow without pain. You don't grow without discomfort. And everybody, no matter what the circumstances, is going to face pain and discomfort in marriage, because, again, it's all about how can I sacrifice and give more of myself to my spouse than to myself, right? That's the idea of marriage. I need to be attached to this person and willing to die for this person and give up my comfort for this person's comfort. And when both people do that, something special happens. So that's one thing that we say is we're here to help each other grow. And at times that means make each other uncomfortable. The second thing is we don't avoid hard things just because they're hard. That is one of the most important things that we talk about in our marriage all the time, is to not do something because it's hard is almost the worst reason not to do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
It drives me up a wall sometimes where it's like, well, we can't do that. That would be impossible. It's like, do you understand what the word impossible means? Impossible is not a synonym of the word hard. Okay. Like, exactly. Impossible means there's no possible way.
Yeah.
For me to birth a child is impossible. I cannot do it.
Yes, exactly.
For us to fly to England to see my brother, not impossible.
Exactly.
Hard? Yes. Not impossible. You know what I mean? So we have that conversation a lot too, where it's, something being hard oftentimes makes it that much more worth pursuing, and it makes the achievement meaningful. If things are easy, the achievement doesn't mean anything.
And to me, makes you stronger once you're on the other side of it.
That's right.
And the word impossible is I'm possible.
There you go. There you go. I've never heard that before, but that's right. That's right. So I would say that the way that we do our kind of like maintenance is through verbal communication. Now we do a date night every Tuesday, so we have an opportunity to talk then. We do a date night. We do like our kids go to bed, between 8 and 9 most nights, and so we have an opportunity to talk after that. And then we also do an annual anniversary trip. And so we always go on an anniversary trip for typically a couple of nights. Now this year, because we just had a baby, he'll go with us. But we'll still go and spend a few nights out. And on those trips, we typically like to kind of like reset and have some conversations about what are we doing right, what are we doing wrong, things along those lines. But it's never from the context of, like, is there a safety release button on our marriage? Do we have the concept that like you can bail on a marriage doesn't make it a marriage. That makes it not a marriage, right? In my opinion. And I, we talked about this on our podcast a decent amount, but marriage is not about being sexually, physically, emotionally attracted to the person you're married to at all times. That's not what marriage is. If you get to the point where you're like, I just don't feel that way about you anymore, then you had a false sense of what marriage was, because marriage is a commitment and it's a promise. Yeah. It is not a promise to be attracted. It's a promise to be faithful and to be with that person and to grow with that person and to build something with that person. And as I mentioned earlier in this podcast, there is nothing that anybody else can offer me that is better and superior to what my wife can offer me. And does that mean that marriage is easy for us? No, it's not easy for us. We got 5 kids, right? Like marriage is tough. Yeah. And every single day, there are 100 times a day where you want to say like, do we even really understand each other? But I think one of the exciting things about marriage is when you do dedicate yourself to each other, you kind of grow together in a very organic way. And, there's nobody else that I'd rather be tackling this with than my wife. And so it's important to communicate directly to each other at times. How do we get through some of this stuff that we're working on?
Clear, concise communication. I say triple C to my wife all the time, man. That's right. All the time.
Love it.
I know you got to jump on another meeting. Real quick, if people want to dive down deeper with you and your wife and hear some more of your podcasts, like where can they go to find that at?
So we are on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Banter and Bliss Pod, I believe, is our TikTok and Instagram. It might just be Banter and Bliss on Instagram, and then our YouTube channel, I believe, also is Banter and Bliss Pod. But it's an ampersand, not the word and. So I every once in a while I try to like search for our account and I can't find it. And I'm like, what in the world? And I realize it's because we're not popular enough yet for Google or for YouTube to be able to, point people directly to us, but you can find us on all those different channels.
Awesome. I'll have links in the show notes and in the comments as well to their podcasts and their social media. But Scott, I can't thank you enough for coming on today, being vulnerable, man, and just putting yourself out there and man. I can't thank you enough, brother. Appreciate it,
man. Yeah, same to you. I appreciate it. I appreciate the invitation, and it's absolutely been my pleasure. Keep doing what you're doing, and we'll continue to stay in touch and follow up with your story and what you got you're going through.
I appreciate that, man. Everybody, go follow Scott and his wife Sarah and their family at the Banter and Bliss podcast on most social media outlets. As always, we love you, we're proud of you, and we care about you. Have a blessed day. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Dad Show podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Dad Show podcast. Please like, review, and subscribe.